Hey guys, welcome back. So today we are going to read the story, All Stories Are Anansi's. Okay, and then tomorrow we're going to talk about it a little more. So let's get started. We're going to identify and review the characteristics of stories, including characters, plot, and setting. We're going to demonstrate an understanding of the word satisfied, which just means we're going to define and use that word satisfied. And we're going to retell the main events of a folktale. Our key vocabulary today is acknowledged, approached, quarreling, and satisfied. All right. So acknowledge means to give credit or admit. Ben made sure to acknowledge that the bug collection he brought to show the class was his brother's. Okay. So he's telling everybody or admitting to everybody that the bug collection is his brother's. Okay. He is giving credit to his brother. All right. And acknowledge is a verb. Approached is also a verb. And approached is to get closer to in time or in distance. So I might say, I got more excited as my birthday approached. So as my birthday got closer, I got more excited. Okay. And then if you look at this picture, this would be an example of approaching in distance. So that man is approaching the horse. He's getting closer to the horse with the horse's food. Okay. Remember, approached means to get closer. Quarreling. Quarreling is also a verb, okay? And it means to disagree or to argue. And here we have a picture of two boys quarreling because they don't want to share their big money bags. Two boys were often quarreling because they didn't want to share. Quarreling is to argue or to disagree. And satisfied is an adjective, and it means to be pleased or happy. Cheese. Okay. Devin's teacher was satisfied with the way he nicely cleaned up the play area. I would be satisfied if you cleaned up the play area too. All right, let's review really quick. Help me remember the tale of Peter Rabbit. So, what happened in this folktale? Mrs. Rabbit tells Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter not to go into Mr. McGregor's garden while she's away, and she tells them to stay out of mischief. Remember, mischief is behavior that gets you into trouble. All right? So while his sisters were picking berries, Peter is naughty and disobedient, right? He goes to Mr. McGregor's garden where he helps himself to some vegetables. Then Peter Rabbit gets seen by who? Who sees Peter Rabbit? Mr. McGregor! And Mr. McGregor chases Peter all through, right? And he calls him a thief because Peter was stealing vegetables. Okay? And then Peter escapes, barely, but he escapes. And when he gets home, Peter is sick and tired and he has to go to bed, while his sisters, who did listen to their mama, got to stay up for a nice, delicious supper. Okay? So, how was Peter Rabbit's behavior different from his sisters? What did Peter do that his sisters did not? His sisters did not go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Right? His sisters actually listened to their mama. Okay. So do you think that Peter Rabbit learned his lesson? I think he did. Do you think that he's going to listen to his mama next time? I think he probably will. But I guess we'll never know. So today's folktale has a trickster in it. And the trickster is a character that tricks others, all right? I want you to listen to see how the trickster in this story tricks others. So we're going to do a little bit of background really quick before we jump in, okay? So today, the folktale that you're going to hear was probably first told in the continent of Africa, okay? So this in yellow, what I just circled, that's Africa. That's the continent of Africa. And this in red right here, that is the country of Ghana, okay? And Ghana is in the continent of Africa. And we live in the United States, or North America. More specifically, we live in good old North Carolina, just somewhere over here. Okay, so to get to Africa, we would have to cross the ocean all the way to Africa and then go to the country of Ghana. Okay, so what does it mean if a story is a folktale? There are 4 things that it means. It means that they are fiction or made believe, right? They are not real. Means they are longer. They have personification, which is animals acting like people. And also it teaches a moral or lesson. All right. So many tales from the Ashanti people of Ghana in Africa began with the same message. We do not really mean that what we are going to say is true. This means the stories are fiction because they're not really true. Okay. Let me erase all of this so that we can go to the next page. All right. What do you see in this illustration? What do you see? I see a spider and a man who looks to be floating in the clouds. Interesting. So, like many folk tales, the characters in this story are animals. This is Anansi, the main character in the story. What do you already know about spiders? I want you to pause the video and go tell somebody. What do you already know about spiders? All right. So the Ashanti people call their folktales spider stories, okay? Many African folktales feature the spider in this illustration, Kwaku Anansi, as a main character. Anansi is a folk hero to the Ashanti. He is a lovable trickster, meaning he plays tricks on people, a mischief maker, behavior that causes trouble, and who triumphs over larger foes, so defeats bigger enemies, okay? A common theme or big idea of spider stories is that a small defenseless creature like a spider outwits or outsmarts other characters to succeed against great odds. Okay, so it means that even though it's little, it's still going to beat something big because it's using its brain and he's outsmarting them. This is Niami, okay? And Niami is a sky god, and he is another character in our story. So today, I want you to listen for those vocabulary words. Remember, we have acknowledge, which means to give credit or admit, approached, which means to get closer to, quarreling, which means disagreeing or arguing, and satisfied, which means pleased or happy. So you're going to raise your hand if you hear one of those 4 words. And you're also going to listen to you're going to listen carefully to find out how Anansi came to be the keeper of the stories. Remember, Anansi is the spider. All right. Long ago, there were no stories on Earth. It was believed that all stories belonged to the sky god, Niame, who kept the stories in a box beneath his throne. Because they had no stories to share, the people of the earth just sat around their campfires. One day, looking down from his web, Anansi the spider could see that the people were restless and bored. Anansi decided he would bring them something that would make them happy and would help them pass the time. Do you see the villagers down there just sitting around the campfire? What do you think is going to happen? Let's see if your prediction is correct. Anansi stretched his 8 legs and wove a wonderful web that reached all the way to the sky. He climbed up the web until he arrived to the throne of the sky god, Niame, the keeper of all stories. Do you remember where Niame kept his stories? I said it earlier. In a box beneath his throne, okay? Niame, he said, wise one, great god of the sky, will you let me have the great box where you keep the stories? I would like to take the stories to the people who live on Earth. I will give you the box of stories, said Niame in a booming voice, but the price is high. you must bring me 3 things. Onini, the great python or big snake who can swallow a goat. Osabo, the mighty leopard whose teeth are as sharp as spears. And Moboro, the hornet whose sting burns like a needle of fire. I will pay the price, said Anansi. Anansi swung back down to earth on his web. He went to speak with his wife, Aso. Together, they crafted a plan to capture Onini, the great python who could swallow a goat. How do you think a teeny little spider is going to catch a great python? Let's see. The next morning, Anansi sneakily walked into the forest, waving a big branch and talking to himself. She's wrong, he said, pretending to be very upset. I know she is. He is much longer than this branch. As Anansi approached or walked up to the watering hole, a large snake rose up. It was Onini, the great python who can swallow a goat. What are you muttering about, Anansi? Asked Onini. You are disturbing my nap. I have been quarreling, or disagreeing, with my wife, said Anansi. She says that you are shorter than this branch, but I say you are longer. She will not listen to me, and I do not see how I can prove that I am right. That's easy, said Onini. Lay your branch on the ground, and I'll lie next to it. Then you shall see that I am longer. The great snake slithered over and lay next to Anansi's branch. It looks like you may be longer, said Anansi, still questioning. But I can't tell for sure because you're not quite straightened out. Could I straighten you out a bit? What do you think's going to happen? Look at that picture. What do you think's going to happen? Certainly, said Onini. Let me fasten your tail at this end, said Anansi as he worked. That way I can be really straighten you out. And here a little lower, and here by your head. Before the python realized what Anansi was up to, Anansi spun a web and used it to tie Onini to the branch. Now you're caught, said Anansi. With that, Anansi carried Onini the python to Niame. That is one thing, said Niame in a loud, deep voice. 2 things remain. Anansi went back to Earth and began to strategize, or plan, how he would catch Osebo, the mighty leopard with teeth as sharp as spears. He dug a deep hole on the path that Osebo used to get to the watering hole. He laid branches across the hole and covered the branches with sticks and leaves and dirt. When Anansi was satisfied that the hole was hidden well, he scurried home and went to sleep. Remember, satisfied means pleased or happy. Do you think Anansi's work is going to work on Onini? Let's see. When Osebo came out to hunt during the night, he fell right into Anansi's trap. Anansi found him down in the hole the next morning. Osebo, said Anansi, what are you doing down in that hole? You fool, said Osebo. Can't you see that I've fallen into a trap? You must help me get out. I will see what I can do, said Anansi. Anansi found a large willow tree and bent the top of the tree over the pit. He spun 2 silk cords and used them to fasten the tree. Then he spun another silky cord and attached it to the top of a tree. This 3rd cord dangled down into the pit. Tie the cord to your tail, said Anansi. Then I'll lift you up. Osebo tied the web to his tail. Do you think that Anansi is going to trick Osebo? Anansi cut the cords that were holding the tree down. The tree sprang back to its original position, carrying Osebo with it. Osebo dangled from the tree, tangled up in Anansi's webwork. Now you're caught, said Anansi. Anansi tightly tied the ends of the web and dragged Osebo the leopard to Niame. Now the sky god was impressed. "That is two things," said Niame. "Only one thing remains." Do you remember what it was? Let's see if you're right. Anansi went back to Earth to catch Moburo, the hornet whose sting burned like a needle of fire. He cut a gourd from a vine and hollowed out the inside. Then he filled the gourd with water and went to the nest where Moburo, the hornet, made his home. Anan- oh, Anansi poured some of the water in the gourd over his own head. Then he dumped the rest of the water on the hornet's nest. Moburo the hornet came out, buzzing angrily. He saw Anansi standing nearby, holding a leaf over his head. Why do you think Anansi poured water in the gourd and held a leaf above his head? Why do you think he did that? Let's see if your prediction's correct. "Oh my," said Anansi. "The rainy season seems to have come early this year, and it looks like you have no shelter from the rain. Why don't you take shelter in my gourd until the rain goes away?" Is Anansi tricking Moburo? I think so. "Thank you, Anansi," said Moburo the hornet as he flew into the gourd. "You're welcome," said Anansi as he closed up the opening in the gourd with his leaf and fastened the leaf with his finest, most intricately laced web. "Now you're caught," said Anansi. Anansi proudly carried Moburo the hornet to Niame. "That is the last thing," proclaimed Niame. "You have succeeded, Anansi, where many before you have failed. You have paid the price." Then Niame called out in a voice like thunder, "Listen to me. Anansi has paid the price for the stories of the sky god, and I do hereby give these stories to him. From this day forward, all the stories belong to Anansi." What do you remember what Anansi wants to do with the stories? He wants to give it to the people, right? "Whenever someone tells one of these stories, he or she must acknowledge that it is Anansi's tale." Remember, acknowledge means to give credit to. Anansi took the box of stories back to Earth and shared them with the people. They were grateful for the stories and told them over and over to their children and to their children's children, who told them to their children, and so on. Even to this day, these stories are known as spider stories. At the end of many spider stories, the storyteller often says, "This is my story which I have related. If it be sweet or if it be not sweet, take it elsewhere and let it come back to me." And now, since we've told the story too, we've helped keep it alive. Okay, guys? All right. I hope you love this story. I think it's a fun story. And we are going to talk about it a little more tomorrow. Bye, guys.